On today's show, we're going to be talking about mental health in sport with Connor Jenkins.
Hello.
Hi, Connor. Welcome to the show. So, previously, we mentioned on the show episode with Joe Toomey, which I'll link at the top of the description, we briefly talked about how badminton and swimming improved our mental health and body positivity. So today I wanted to talk about mental health and that subject more in depth and how sport can help. We have Connor Jenkins today, a Canterbury Christchurch student from Margate and member of the CCCU Climbing Society, about mental health in sport. So, Connor, thank you for coming on the show today.
That's all right. Thank you for having me.
No problem. And last week, I just wanted to briefly go over a few of the messages and comments we've received. So all of last week's episodes were comments on the social media post that we did, all of the 5th episode. And feel free to leave comments of what you think about this in the comments below, because in the 7th and 8th episode, we are going to be going over all the comments you leave here. So please leave all of your thoughts for Connor, and we'll send the messages to him and get him back on the show in the future.
Can't wait.
Connor, could you just explain briefly for me before we start, what is the Climbing Society?
Yeah, sure. So essentially it's a climbing society. We have a 30-foot rock wall at the university, and we run 2 sessions a week for training. And we all very fond of each other, very fond of climbing. It's a passion that a lot of people have discovered just by coming to uni, and it's arguably one of my favourite sports. I do a fair amount, but it's my favourite out of everything. It's just there's so much to it. It's so much mental, so much physical. It's more complicated than everyone thinks.
So, what other sports do you do as well?
It's primarily anything to do with like running. I do a lot of running stuff. I say sports, so just like physical stuff in general. I'm a big goer of the gym. And whenever I can, I try and arrange like matches and games with my friends and stuff. Not football. I'm not a football guy. So everything else, alternative, I can just put together. But compared to everything else I've done, climbing is definitely like the biggest and best and most fun, thrilly kind of thing I can do. So
what makes that the sport for you?
I feel like because not only is it a workout, it's like you said, the whole point of this episode, it's also like a very mental workout as well. It's not just a case of climb up the wall, figuring out how you're going to do it. It really is a physical puzzle of, if I do this wrong, I might slip and fall, I could mess up this particular move. It's very tactical. There's a lot of like bits to it. There's a lot of, a lot of people think it is just going up the wall, but there is so much more to it than, it's just different hand movements and techniques, twists and turns and ways to like hook yourself in certain positions.
And do people compete against each other running up
Yes.
2 sides? And so is it quite a competitive environment, but in a good way?
Yeah, it really can be. It relies very heavily on teamwork, because obviously depending on what kind of climbing you do, for instance, if you're top roping, which is where you have somebody like helping you up, well, not helping you up, but it's like a safety precaution having someone there. That relies a lot on trusting your partner both ways. Communication is very key. Knowing your partner inside and out when it comes to climbing, because one wrong move and that's a big fall you could take.
So from the side of connecting with people, because we talked on the previous episode about badminton and connecting with a partner without even needing to talk to them, is it the same sort of thing where you think you get quite a close connection with another person quickly?
It is definitely something that you can really bond with somebody over, especially if you figure out that through. It's called belaying, which is when the person on the ground is the belayer doing the belaying. Belay is a weird word. And yeah, it really is a good way to develop that connection with somebody. There are a lot. Most documentaries you watch, apart from free solo ones on climbing, they generally always have a belay partner, which is the person who will help them on the wall. They take turns, and they get to know each other's techniques and tricks. And but you can talk to them and communicate how you want them to help you.
So they're as much part of the team as the climber themselves.
Yes, exactly. Equally as important in my eyes. Yes, literally. There's a very specific technique. There's a couple of different ones, but there is one, main core one, which is literally just their life is in your hands. It's all about holding the rope in a certain way and doing the correct technique with the correct equipment, making sure it's all safely done, and there are lots of different mix and match. Safety precautions to take whilst you're doing it.
So on the mental side of it, it's about responsibility. It gives you a massive amount in a way that a good job that you enjoy does. So we were talking about radio earlier before the show and how we have a lot of responsibility for the output of the show and making sure content's good. Is it another outlet that gives you a lot of responsibility and trust and fulfillment?
Responsibility, yes. Trust, definitely yes. And fulfillment is 1,000% yes. I can't remember the exact names. I did have notes I was doing the other day, but I completely forgot it. There are 3 chemicals that get released when you are climbing. But the combination of the 3 at the same time, it's the whole physical and mental side of things, and it just releases this hugely endorphic feeling. Is that a word, endorphic?
Yeah, well, you release an endorphins.
Yeah, you get this huge rush of like, wow, that is the most satisfying feeling.
And so what is the fulfillment for you? Is it making it to the top?
It's the same as just a regular workout, in the sense of when you improve upon yourself. So there's different routes, different challenges, different tasks to do whilst you're doing it, and so obviously things are more harder than others. So in the sense of that, there are a lot that are quite difficult to do. There's whole documentaries on hard walls and this and the other. And obviously, the more you keep trying at it, the better at it you become. And you learn different techniques and different ways, and communicating with your friends as well who are helping you. It's definitely something you grow at. So overcoming something that you've not done before, it's just the feeling of doing something new. It's like when you finish your driving test after failing 5 times. It's like after you fail a wall as many times as you can count, and you finally do it. It's just like the best. Like, oh my god, I did it! And you go on to the next one and the next one, until you come a flat surface.
So it's really, you challenge people to try it as a new thing. Is it one of those things where you feel like you go into it and you don't know what you're doing? What would you recommend for someone then who's coming into rock climbing, who thinks they don't want to come because they don't want to embarrass themselves, but as you've said, getting over that first wall especially, what would you recommend to someone new coming in?
The obvious one is don't look down. That's something I learned the hard way. I've got a massive fear of heights. That's why I joined. One of the reasons why I joined. And I've overcome that, But honestly, it's things like, it's all about the trust and just be confident in the fact that you're safe if you do it correctly with with people you trust. Just don't rely too much on physical strength alone. It's definitely more of a mental game than you'd think.
Yeah.
It's not just a case of, I've heard so many other sports teams at university who have said, it's just rock climbing, it's easy, but it's, as soon as you actually try it, then you're like, wow, this is actually quite a task, it's quite a mentally and physically draining thing to do.
So you said that one of the reasons you got into it was to overcome a fear of heights. But you said there were others. What were the other reasons you got involved?
Making friends was one. It's a very team-based exercise, and even though it doesn't look like it half the time, it really is a very team-based thing. And I've made the best friends of my entire life through the love of the sport, through university and outside of university as well. And plus, it's a new hobby which I've discovered. I only joined about 1.5 years ago, and I've committed to it. I've made leaps and bounds since then. But it's a fantastic hobby. It gives you more stuff to do. I've travelled the country with friends at this point, looking for places to climb and going to different centres, this, that, and the other. And I'm not saying I'm any good, by any stretch of the imagination, but it's definitely it's just such a great way to pass the time, and it's a good way to the amount of times since I've joined climbing, I've laid there in bed. On Instagram, you just flick through just at climbing stuff. Just look at it, I'm like, that's so cool, man. That technique's cool. I'll try that tomorrow. There's so many times like that. It's just a good way to occupy yourself, and in a positive and fulfilling way.
So we talked in the last time we talked about this with Joe about, I met him through badminton, which is my sport, every Saturday, and I've made a lot of my close friends through badminton, and we talked about how we always go to the cafe afterwards and have a chat, debrief, and that's some of the best times for some people. So would you say for you, the social aspect of sport, especially in terms of mental health, is more important than people realise, because it's in a way a form of icebreaker to someone who doesn't have a social circle and they're coming in and trying to make friends? They get a 2-for-1 there. You get the sport and the social group.
Yeah, 100%. Purely because that's literally the situation I was in when I joined. I didn't have anybody here at all at university, and I heard about this group because I enjoy working out. I enjoy exercise quite a lot, and I heard about this group that was really into that, into a lot of the same things as me, and it's a whole new sport that I'd like to try. And it took me a lot of convincing to go, but after I finally did it, I was like, man, how did I miss this? How did I not do this before? There is obviously that little bit of oh man, what if I do it wrong? What if people judge me? But then that comes with anything new. But as soon as you actually do it and you try it, and now I'm just I'm teaching people who are doing it for the first time. I'm just like, don't feel like that.
Yeah.
It's like, I know it's easier said than done, but just don't do it. Like, no one's gonna. It's a hard thing to do. It's a very hard thing to get into, hard thing to do. But as soon as you go do it and you learn and you get better, it's just brilliant. People will admire you for that, trying something new.
Well, you said you took some convincing to do it. Why do you think it took you quite some time to convince you? And what was the moment, the turning point, that made you say yes?
It was probably just all the constant pestering. It was just a bit of a weird moment in my life, really. Going a bit more personal at this point. I just didn't really have much going on for me at that time, and I was a bit like down in the dumps, not really doing much. And then I just heard a lot about climbing. And there's one person in particular. Okay, there's one person was my mother. If I'm being completely honest about it.
Yeah.
And they just kept saying try it. And I looked into it and I saw some of the benefits. I did a bit of research and I was like, you know what, I'll give it a go. And I have not been this happy in general. 'Cause it's the friends and the rush and the success of it and trying new things and the workout. It's a whole big pile of yes.
Yeah.
It just took me a while because it's a new thing. It's scary, that's the bottom line. I wish I'd tried it sooner.
Yeah, that's the only regret. And
it really is, yeah.
And so do you think you now see that rubbing off on other people? Because you said that you've brought people in, you've managed to train them up. I know I get that feeling where I bring a friend along to badminton and then they keep actually going. It's something special, isn't it, when you've passed that on?
It really is, yeah. It's a very satisfying feeling. One in the sense of getting your friends to do something that you enjoy with you, but in the other sense as well of like, I'm at the point now, I'm actually on the committee for the team. I'm the social secretary, which involves, making sure everyone's okay and happy and get along with each other and trying to make sure we all work as a team. And like I said, I'm not exactly the best climber in the world, but I've definitely noticed a growth since when I started a year and a half ago. Like ridiculous amounts I've come. That sounds like I'm bigging myself up. Compared to how bad I was when I started, now I'm at a mediocre level, and that's like, for me, that's a crazy thing.
Yeah.
And I've seen my friends improve in that sense as well since joining, and it's just a very happy. It's like, it's like seeing a friend get a promotion.
Yeah.
You're like, and you convince them to get that job, and it's like, yeah, see, I told you, you'd be good at it, and they're like, yeah, I love it, same sort of thing.
So you talked about earlier that you think other people who look from the outside at rock climbing, that it's quite simple, it's just rock climbing. Do you think that mentally, people, especially someone who's not involved in a sport at the moment, doesn't realise the impact it has on you mentally? Because I think that with a sport, especially as someone who is a massive enjoyer of football, it can often feel like people think that it's quite a two-dimensional thing and that it's not as complex as it is. Do you think that it needs to be more awareness on the positive benefits internally for a sport?
Yes, it is quite 2D literally because it's a vertical surface. But yes, I feel like this is coming from me personally as well. I didn't know much about it, and I thought I was one of those people who thought, how hard can it be? And now that's flipped my world upside down, actually getting into it. There's no real easy way to say it. Just don't knock it till you try it, I guess. But not in a sense of like, I don't like it. In a sense of like, it's just, every sport has its own fundamentals and, ins and outs and things to do. And, me not being a big football fan, I don't know half the stuff about playing football, and it's like, but then I'm sure, and that puts me off a little bit. But I'm sure as soon as I actually made the effort to learn more about it and get more into it, then I'll probably be like, oh, this is great,
Yeah, so you think, in terms of exploring other sports, I want to go back maybe into the past, your journey with sport. So you talked about the rock climbing now. What has your journey through sport been growing up?
Growing up as a kid, I just never cared at all. I was the most video games all day, every day, not going outside. My family was trying to get me to go outside. And then about the time I turned 18, just after I turned 18, I finally looked in the mirror and I was a bit out of shape and I was a bit like this, that and the other. And I needed to make some more friends. And that was when I started going to the gym finally. 'Cause my family are very big gym heads, I guess for lack of a better word. And I was like, Mum, can you show me how to do gym?
Yeah. And it's good to have someone behind you to push you forward and actually make you do it.
My mum used to be a personal trainer. I think she does it a little bit now, but not as much as she used to. So she was really good at helping me get into it, and then it all kind of started from there, really. And then I started going out with my friends and doing like more social sports stuff with my friends back home. and going to the beach more, going outdoors more. And since then, I was like, I wasted my childhood playing video games. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love video games still.
Yeah.
But now I just wish I'd been that kid who went outside, did stuff, and tried new things, and climbed and adventured, and this, that, and the other. And yeah, I guess growing up, that kind of never really hit me. And now 6 years have passed since I first went to the gym. Almost 5 years, 7 years, 7 years, 7 years, which is a scary thought for me. I'm almost 30. But yeah, and it's really that's my journey. It's been a big improvement since I started doing it, and not only am I seeing improvements, but I'm also hungry for more improvement. I want to keep doing things more and more and more. I don't want to lose who I am as a person in that. So I love my music, I love my video games, I love being a massive nerd.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I keep wanting to try new sports, new things. Apart from football, it's not really that fast. But yeah, I mean, I think it definitely being open to trying more things physically and mentally together. It's the biggest and best thing you can do for yourself as a human being. I really do genuinely believe that.
And it is about a balance, obviously, because you said you still enjoy video games.
Oh yeah, definitely.
As a kid, you think you grew up too much with them? Because I know I did. I played video games 4 or 5 hours a day.
That's literally what I'm going to go and do after this. I'm going to go.
But no, and if you've done sport in the day or in the week, then you feel like it's more of a treat rather than just something that happens.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's all about that balance, I mean, I'm at the point in my life now where I'm also working a hell of a lot, and I'm going to university. I mean, there are days where I wake up and I just fancy sitting down all day, but, I still push myself to go to the gym, and I still push myself to try these. Hey, if I've got a climbing session booked that day, I'll go to a climbing session. Even if I don't want to at the time, but as soon as you start doing it, it's like, okay, this is great. And then as soon as you finish it and you're tired out and your muscles hurt, then you're just like, wow, I'm glad I did that.
And we talked previously about the importance of routine. So do you think that that's been the big thing, knowing you have to be in a place at a time? 1,000%.
I actually used to be busier back home, believe it or not. I used to work in a junior school full time. And it used to be a case of get up at 5, cycle to work, which is half an hour.
Yeah.
I'd have a break in the middle of the day for 2 or 3 hours. That'd be my gym time. And it was every single day. And I'd go back to work and work for another 6-7 hours. And then I'd come home, make dinner, go to the gym again. And then I'd get up at 5, get back home, properly settled down at 10 o'clock in the evening. And that was me every single day, weekdays, for about 3-4 years of my life. Which is weird because now I'm 24 and, I should be doing that, now, not then. Yeah. But yeah, I think the routine definitely helps, because then you get to a point where if you miss a workout session or you miss a sport thing you're going to do and you're sitting there and then all of a sudden you feel agitated and you feel like, oh man, I feel like I've not completed the day. Even though I'm sitting here doing nothing, enjoying the rest of my evening, I've not actually done. I'm wasting this day. There's so many great, amazing things I could be doing with myself. I'm not saying people who sit down and watch TV and play video games all day are wasting it, because that's not the case at all. But when you're in that routine and you enjoy that routine, I mean, yeah, that's the best way to put it, actually. Yeah. So, for instance, say your routine is you go to work, come home, play video games every single day. Imagine you were then taken away from that by something. And then you'd be like, well, this doesn't feel right. You know? And you'd be somewhere else doing something else and you'd be like, what's this? I don't like this feeling. That's the best way I can describe it.
And I imagine at the start of the transition as well, it probably feels quite awkward when you're going from a life of video games and you had such a strict routine of work to something a little bit more flexible, especially around university. You say that having a place to be, I know that Saturday mornings I've got to be at badminton at 9 o'clock. And
in the morning?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. I love getting up early now. I mean, I don't like it, but as soon as I'm up, I'm like, yeah, whole day ahead of me.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that on a Saturday, because it's on a Saturday, it's a day where you could afford a lie-in if you wanted to, but knowing that other people are there working and you aren't, it pushes you to go through, and so you probably get that same sort of feeling with climbing.
Yeah, absolutely, I really do. But I'm finding, me and my friends, when we go out, we're always walking around town. Anybody on the climbing team can vouch for this, I promise you. We walk around town and we're just like, I could climb that. Climb that. Oh, should we try and climb that? Oh, let's do it. But it's just stuff like that, you get in such a routine, and when it's taken away from you, then you just find yourself getting angsty and wanting to do it more. Yeah. And I've definitely planned trips with my friends since then, just to go and find places to climb and do this, that, and the other. I don't want to say the only friends. I've got friends back home, but here in Canterbury, my only and best friends in the world are all on my climbing team. Yeah. Because we have that one mutual interest, and then following from that, we've all had the best times together. We've travelled, we've had the best nights and the worst nights, and it's all a big mix.
So you've come into Canterbury from...
Only from Margate.
Only from Margate.
Yeah, not too far at all. But my family's all moved away now back home, so I'm now a permanent Canterbury resident.
Yeah.
Check me out.
But it was sort of a way for you to get into the city socially, would you say?
Yes, 1000%. I used to go out by myself quite a lot. I used to read I read a guide on how to go out by yourself. How sad is that?
Yeah, everyone has a different way.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with going to the pub by yourself, but that's not what we're here to talk about.
But
yeah,
no, it's all relevant, isn't it? Because
yeah.
you started off with that, and you were longing for more of a social life,
Definitely,
and that was a part of the key in.
Yeah,
really.
absolutely. I mean, I don't go a day without texting at least 3 or 4 people on my team. It's a family. I mean, I call it my family. It's a very cliche thing, but it is definitely my the people I see every day, people I talk to every day, people I get along with every day. I'm actually moving in with 2 guys, a guy and a person. Actually, no, this is where it all kind of blends into each other. Okay, so I joined the team last year, and in this year's new members, I met one of my best friends, Lily, and they joined up, and they're one of the people that have improved leaps and bounds. They actually won an award. We have the Climies, which we give out twice a year, and they won an award for most improved last Christmas, which is fantastic. I'm very happy for them. And then I convinced my friend from back home, Morgan, to join up the team. And Margate's a very small place, there's not much to do. But since then, he's made all these friends as well, and then we hang out together all the time. It's great to see that. And now me, Morgan, and Lily are all moving in together, in 3 weeks from now. So it's it's such a close bond we all have, and I love it. I mean, obviously, this can't go broadcast on the internet or anything. They can't know how much I actually like them. But this is not being recorded, right?
Yeah. no mic in the room.
I'm joking. But yeah, it's just it's a really great sense of community. I mean, obviously that comes with every society at university, but this is the one for me. It's just about finding that common ground with people, isn't it? And when you find that, then it's just the rest writes itself. Yeah,
because everyone's going with just that one objective, and you're not going to be in the room if you don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, I mean, obviously, there's other societies sport-based within the university as well. So, in fact, even talking about, we're going to go on to later, local impacts about how in Kent we think that we can help people. But on the other side, so both of us, I think, have been there, but in that situation before, where you haven't had the sport, haven't had the guidance. The sport is actually a way in to help. And I had 2 stories that were football examples of footballers actually... We're going to hear paper rattling now. So, footballers coming forward about problems they had that weren't as cast in the media. So I did want to have a brief discussion about how mental health in sport is represented in the media, as obviously there's a massive charge at the minute to letting people's stories be known. And I just wanted to reiterate the 2 stories on air here and then get your thoughts, because we had this summer Emmanuel Eboue, the former Ivory Coast defender and Arsenal player, recently come forward about his struggles with mental health. And this is both of the 2 stories here from BBC Sport and The Guardian, in an emotional interview, because when he was suspended by FIFA for all football-related activities, and the ban was relating to a failed payment to a former agent, which led to a termination of a contract with his club. This is a quote from Eboue himself, saying, "Sometimes I would lock myself in my room for 3 or 4 days just thinking, what's left? Even today I still take antidepressants to help me because it is a long road ahead for me, but here I am hoping others will learn from this." Now, he was a player who lost quite a lot and didn't really ever talk about this. So this is something he's only coming out with and talking about in 2019, but something that went wrong, especially in his family life, because he was lying to his family about things. "I couldn't train during the day and was too embarrassed to stay at home. My children always asked me when I was going to return to the field, so whenever I stepped out in the morning, I would pretend to go to work."
Oh, that's really sad, man.
Poor
guy.
Yeah, unbeknown to my children, I was staying outside and returning home when they were already in bed. I didn't want them to ask me why they didn't see me play on the television. And this is all because he had that ban from a failed agent payment, and how that affected his career massively. And it's one of those things that I think adds a lot of depth to sport in general, because that's something that he's had to come back from, a series of setbacks. But what do you think, especially someone in that kind of situation who's had setbacks and knockbacks in their sport, how do you think that that's all reflected?
I do feel like this is where I get really off it. I do feel like the media obviously focuses more on the bad more than the good. I mean, like not necessarily bad stories as much as this sort of thing here. I feel like it's not reported on as much as it could be, and I feel like that's quite because sport is such a competitive this and the other, and that's the main focus. Like will England beat Germany? That sort of whole thing, and that's all people quote unquote care about. People are turned more into objects in sport rather than people, and that's the really sad thing. I mean, like I guarantee the everybody who heard about this story, well not everybody, but like the vast amount of people who heard about this story, and they were just like, oh man, that sucks, but they didn't think about his family once. It's a whole, and how that might affect them. His kids not seeing him before they go to bed, that sort of thing. I mean, I don't actually know who this person is because I'm just not a football fan, but I'm assuming he might be on the up now because he's come forward about this. Or
yes,
yeah,
come more forward about it. This story has actually come out in the last, I think about 10 days ago.
Oh wow, okay.
And
so that's
before that, nobody in the media, especially me as someone who's a massive football fan, was aware that this had happened with this player.
I mean, like in the long, people don't look at sport and mental health being a thing that goes together, but it definitely should because of all the impacts, good and bad. I feel like overall it should definitely be held in higher regard to how it can help you in this way, how it might hinder you in that way. If people should have like classes on this, that, and the other. Part of PE, physical education. But when I was a kid in school, I won't name the school. It was every single week. It was play football. It wasn't a learning experience. It wasn't this, that, and the other. It was like the two teachers we had, I feel like made a lesson plan once a month, but the rest of the time it was all just play football. And as someone who struggles with mental health myself quite a bit, that was definitely that might be one of the reasons why I had such a bad experience with sports growing up. Just that being forced to do it. I didn't even like it. I still don't like it. And maybe that's why I don't like football now.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, it's because there wasn't a reason to do it. Do you think? There was no setup of the collaboration of it. It was just go out and do with no guidance.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally a case of no guidance. It was people pick their friends, not people they genuinely think are good at the sport. And also, if somebody wasn't up to sport, if somebody wasn't into that or this and the other, it's definitely a very biased environment. I think. I mean, not all of football, just that one particular scenario. I just feel like, I mean, definitely in like the last 2 or 3 years, mental health and recognition of it has gone, once again, leaps and bounds. I keep using that phrase. It's skyrocketed, the attention that it's getting, it deserves. It's definitely on the up. I mean, like, proven by this article right here. I feel like this is the sort of thing that would not have come out 5 years ago. I'm really glad it has, and I'm really glad that people are feeling like they can talk about this publicly now, especially when they are in the public eye. Such a big deal to people.
Yeah, he was a massive defender. He used to play for Arsenal, and I've got in a moment another story from a Tottenham defender. But I brought it up because Joe Toomey obviously talked on the last show we had about sport about how when he was a kid he didn't like he got dressed quickly in PE because of people always staring at him because he had the pigeon chest, and he said that now older. He thinks that it's better because everyone's more mature about it. When he goes swimming, it's fine.
And I feel like it's really good that mental health is getting all of this great attention recently. But to counteract that, I feel like it's such an easy way to access more ways to doubt it and say like F that, the rest of it. I mean, because I feel like it's also desensitizing people in a bad way. Like I see so much on Facebook now. Friends, family, just general posts that are shared and liked and whatever else. And I feel like me personally, I understand that it's a huge issue and it needs to be raised more, but there are times now where I see it and I kind of scroll past certain things because it's just so desensitized in 2019. It's a very popular thing to post about, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, all that means is that people are happier to come forward about things and more open about things and like talking about things more, which I think is fantastic. But like I said, I mean, I feel like there are very certain situations where children, especially like growing up now, like somebody's 10 years old now, will just see that and not care. The only reason why I feel like why I care more about it is because I grew up in a time where that was not the case. I didn't have a phone until I was like older than that. But and even then, I didn't have Facebook for years and years and years. And it's just there's so much of it. And I just feel like it's not the best thing for kids. Social media is not the best way for kids to learn about mental health. I feel like it should be more in schools. And if that could be heightened in sport as well, like focusing more on team play and do's and don'ts of certain situations and how do I react to this, how do I react to that. I thought that should be something that could be worked on a bit more.
Yeah, because sport can work with especially for kids, the physicality of it. So if you want a physical release of adrenaline. Again, we talked about lesson plans. I think that was something that you were longing for growing up, the idea of knowing why we're doing this. Because I had the same thing with... At school, badminton they would just set the courts up and leave the room whilst we played.
Yeah, that was football. Yeah, that's exactly the same.
And but not to say that the teachers were necessarily bad. It was just that's how it was, and I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it, but which is why I still play it now. But obviously, as a kid, when everyone's not really playing properly, not using the rules, and you don't really understand why you're doing it, it can prove tricky. Because we used to sort of run away to the gym, because the gym was actually the uncool place to be at my school. Everyone was always out on the football pitch. That's where the cool place was to be.
Oh yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
badminton was the middle of the road, and if you didn't want to talk to anyone, you go to the gym. So,
that's awesome. I like that.
But the other story, just wanted to briefly talk about before we move on to other news. Again, another footballer who came forward last year, almost a year to the day, June 6th, 2018, sorry, that's when this came out. Danny Rose, who was opening up about depression after tragedies he'd suffered, because he was going through, he went through a triple family trauma quite quickly, and because he was an injury-prone footballer, he spent a lot of... his depression was triggered by a lengthy knee injury. And because he was getting so much shot into his knee that he doesn't even remember how many times he was getting shots to try and improve his situation. In and around the same time that his uncle killed himself, his mother was racially abused and an assailant was shooting at his brother. So that was all reported by The Guardian a year ago. I wanted to focus on this. Great that he came forward, because this was him coming out and opening up about it completely. And amazing that he's able to do so. But about injury in sport, have you ever had one that you've had to come back from? What's it like when that situation comes up?
I've never had one personally, but I know that can be a very heartbreaking and awful experience, especially mentally. I mean, for instance, same sort of vein, not necessarily sport. One of my best friends is a professional photographer. And, we were saying just the other day about if he broke any part of his body, his arm or his leg, he couldn't do his job, like at all. There's no way he can, like, walk around or take photos without, one hand or one leg. But I've got musician friends as well, if they're professional musicians and they mess up something, then that's that for, 6 months or so. And it's the same with sport, if sport is your entire life, it's like, just imagine your favourite thing in the whole world is taken away from you just over a 5-minute short experience, and then obviously there's the drug side of things and how it'll affect you afterwards, how the road to recovery after healing, that's also a long, drawn-out process.
Yeah.
And it's literally just a case of, like, here's your favourite thing in the world, now it's taken away from you, and you got to earn it back slowly, it's not even like a quick recovery, it's a case of, like, up, around a year, I'd say, like, overall, for the whole entire thing. There are, like, really famous people, back to climbing, who, like, climb with, like, limbs missing, that sort of thing, and they are, like, crazily praised, which obviously is deserved, but I'm sure they went through some period of their life where they were very upset and unhappy, and then they discovered their favourite sport, and which they could still do, and people praised them, and then they loved it themselves. We actually have a member, or we have somebody who's spoken about joining climbing next year, and I'm not sure what condition they have exactly, but they have one of those walking frame.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure what they're called, but it's like a walking frame with got like wheels on the back of it and stuff. And they're interested in joining climbing. And to me, that's like the best thing in the world. Seeing somebody ambitious like that. Obviously, it'd be quite a difficult task, but I'm not in any way going to let that stop them or me. And obviously, being part of a team as we are, we're all going to try our best to make it the best experience possible for that person. And hopefully, they feel like they like it. If we can make an experience better for someone mentally, that's like the best thing in the world. Making someone happy. Yeah,
well, that's amazing. Yes, and not letting the challenge put you off or them off as well. That's a big step for someone.
I was a bit taken back when they said they wanted to join the team. I mean, like, it was more a case of like it came out of nowhere in the conversation. They were at the pub and they just said, "Oh, I might join climbing next year," and I was like, "So say that again?" Not in like a rude way, just in that disbelief. I was like, "Wow, that's amazing! You should do it. Definitely, please do that." And it was just such a cool thing to hear.
Yeah. Oh, and you almost feel like you potentially inspired that thought in them. You planted a seed.
I like to think I did. I definitely didn't, but I like to think I did.
Or someone in the team did. And
for the team,
for the team, that's really great as a whole.
Absolutely,
Part of the reason I brought up this article because and what you said about finding a sport you can still do. I had to stop playing football because I had a growth spurt that caused quite bad back pain. So every time I would kick a ball, I'd get a shot up my spine in pain.
That sucks.
And so I had to quit completely. And that's why I went back to badminton, because I found that sport that I could still do, as you said. So it's not letting someone be put off if an injury has caused you to not be able to do your current sport still, because you can still find a way to do that physically, is what we discussed. And now on to Julian Cowell-Hill, who I personally followed his journey through his recovery from tinnitus, which is a ringing sound you have in your ear. He had it much more severe than me, but I've got a ring in my right ear, as I mentioned when I was on the podcast with Joe. And we talked about Julian because he used swimming as his way to recover from tinnitus, because it was a body-based practice, something very physical. And when you're under the water, the ringing goes down. And I noticed that from when I've gone swimming since. And unless you've got bad ear damage, and a doctor, obviously we say doctors' recommendations are first and foremost, but if you're able to swim, it's an amazing thing to do for a tinnitus sufferer, because you're in the water, you're moving, and it's something very special because you aren't thinking about the ring at all. Tinnitus is one of those things that ends up taking a bit of your focus away when it's constantly there. But for him, that was what got him saved. It saved his life, and it's been one of the things that's contributed for me. He also did yoga and Tai Chi, which I've been a massive fan of yoga because of my back pain. Is yoga something you've ever been involved in?
I'm about as flexible as this table. Honestly, it's I've definitely been interested in trying it, but it's more finding the time. I know a few friends. One of my best friends, James, I know he does yoga. And yeah, they always go on and on about it, and they say it benefits them mentally, and it's great to start the day, end the day. It's a good thing to do with friends.
You've probably still got a lot of time. You've got a lot of sports to try still.
I'm getting pretty old.
You said you were 24?
I'm 24. I'm almost 25. Yeah.
Oh, you said you were nearly 30 at the start.
Yes, that's how I feel. I'm going to be dust in a few years.
Oh, no.
Well, considering everyone else at uni is like 18, 19, it's a bit... How old are you?
I am 20.
You're 20. There we go, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm not 18.
Yeah, that's
but
cool.
No, you can't let that put you off either, age, especially in a society at uni, because we've got... There's someone in our class who's in his 60s.
Oh, for real?
I don't know if he's a part of any societies, but he's done a lot of photography for
Captain of the football team or something.
Yeah. Well, he's done photography for some of the student bashes that have been on it. So yeah, don't let age put you off any of these.
Keep an eye out.
Yeah, well, and yeah, he's doing all the photography. We should get him doing rock climbing photography for you guys.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout, actually. I shouldn't say that because we literally just got a photography sponsor. But
oh, wow. So that was what Connor and I have to say so far about mental health in sport. But if you have a story to tell about this subject, feel free to leave us a comment on YouTube, or you can contact the Facebook page at the My Generation Podcast, and we'll feature comments over the next few episodes, so get your thoughts in. We really want to keep this conversation going and try and get those thoughts back to Connor as well, so he can address them too. Next, we move on to local impact. So being a Kent-based show with guests from 18 to 30, we like to talk briefly about local impacts and what you can do if you live in the area. If you're a listener from outside Kent, this may still also apply to wherever you're living. But, Connor, I wanted to talk about Kent specifically. We've talked about the Christchurch societies, but if you're not a part of Christchurch University, what would you recommend to someone looking to get into a sport in the local area?
Looking to get into a sport? Oh, man. I would say don't limit yourself. See something cool, you want to do it, you do it, man. It's whatever makes you feel good. And if there's anything around, anything you see that looks interesting, even if it's only like a small 5-6 person club, don't be afraid to just be like, hey, I'm interested in this. And don't be afraid to start. Starting is the hardest part. Same with gym, same with making friends, same with running, same with school, same with uni, same with everything in your entire life. The very first thing is that first week. As soon as that's done, it's just the most rewarding, satisfying, friendly, team-based experience of your entire life. It's just something that needs to be done.
And being from Margate, have you been swimming in there's the big...
the Victorian pool?
Yeah. Because we tried to refer to that in the last podcast, but neither of us have been in it. Could you paint a picture for the viewers of what that is and what that's about?
Okay, so, bottom line, you have a beach. That's the core, right? And on the beach there is, dare I say, 30 meters by 30 meters. It's like a big square made out of brick, and it's really old. And when the tide comes in, it fills up, and then it kind of like extremely slowly drains. Most of the time it's full, even when the tide's out. But it's essentially just a big not natural, like a big outdoor pool made of stone. And it's like really shallow on one end and it's really deep on the other end, so it's just a giant pool. It's literally this big 30 by 30 meter square on the beach. It's quite high up as well. You have to kind of like take the stairs up to it. Wow. It's a big old pool, yeah, it's great. People like have little dinghies in there and stuff, and people swim all summer in there. It's nice.
Is it free? Is it? How do you?
Yeah, it's just outdoors, it's just there. You know, it's just a big old square on the beach. Like I literally can't describe it any better way than that. Yeah. I think there are like flagpoles around the edge, I mean, in the four corners to show where it is and stuff, and some signs saying "Be careful," this, that, and the other. There are always lifeguards on duty as well for the entire beach, so they're always looking out. Just beware of like crabs and weaverfish. I guess you step on those and they hurt real bad. So
yeah, because I think that's finding those weird, strange little things in Kent that are just beautiful, and I hadn't heard about it until only a few weeks ago. And, so you've been swimming in there? I've
been swimming in everything in Thanet, dude. I just love. I mean, once again, it's one of the things I never did when I was growing up. But like since I was teenagers, when I started going out by myself, you know, the beach is my. If I can paint the picture of home and what I think home is, it's just being on the beach in the middle of summer with my friends. Whether that's swimming, just relaxing, having a few beers, talking, just anything, you know. Just the beach, man. The beach is great, and it's great when you have something in your hometown where you come from, which is like it's got this niche kind of niche cultural outdoor sporty thing you can do. That's just a happy thought for me, you know, being at home doing activities on the beach with my friends. Yeah. Every town has its own little weird thing like that. You know, whether it's just an outdoor park, or maybe there's a natural rock climbing wall, or there's tennis courts or something like that. You know, you can always make something out of it, and it's great. I love it. Yeah,
and I know there's quite a lot of hidden things in the area like that. The Margate pool. If you're in Margate, check it out. It's not usually that busy anymore. So, like in Canterbury, I know there's in Westgate Gardens. I think there's an outdoor yoga thing every Sunday morning.
Oh, really?
Which I didn't know about until recently.
Oh, we should go together. Yeah. Part of the podcast. We'll bring the microphone down.
Yeah. Next episode will be the yoga retreat. How did that go? Sunday morning.
Just like We Fit outdoors.
Yeah. Well, it's either that or Dane John Gardens. One of the big two. It's really cool. And then you've got we talked about me and Joe about the social media app Meetup. If you've heard of that app.
No,
it's basically does what it says on the tin.
Sell it to me. Go on.
Well, you post events on the app and then you go to them, or you see events and go to them. It's simple.
For like sports or anything? Or
yeah,
like
there's a running group. There's a running group. Okay. I go to the badminton group. Nice. We do pool every Monday.
What's that called again? Let me write it down.
Meetup.
Just called Meetup? Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
That's Meetup for everybody who's just...
Well, me and on the first episode of the podcast, again, I'll link it below. It was me and Daniel Inwood talking about social media because we met on Meetup. And, that's the one. And most of my close friends that I have met through Meetup.
Oh, really?
I'll be brutally honest. I got into badminton through it.
Nice.
Cool. And it's an app and that's how I found out about the Sunday morning yoga, because someone who goes to badminton also goes to that. And it sort of all bleeds out from there, that social life. So I think that's something I'd again recommend. I've reiterated this in past episodes, but it's like what you said with societies, but if you aren't involved in a university, because if you're at Kent or Christchurch in Canterbury, it's a little easier, but there's a lot of events in Canterbury.
Well, that's another good thing to mention as well, though, is the fact you don't necessarily have to be a member of the university to join most sports, I believe.
Really?
Like for us, for instance, we have one of our sessions we run a week. It's called Social Sports, and I think all you have to do is be a member of the gym. And if you're not, you go there, sign a bit of paper, pay £2, and you're in for the day. But I know for a fact that we have members of the CCCU Climbing Club who are not necessarily... they're either ex-students or they know students or this, that, and the other. It's a very, cool thing we've got set up. And I think a lot of other sports have a very similar thing.
Yeah. So it's not a closed group. Anyone can.
No. You can actually... publicly take a look at the Facebook page, CCCU Climbing, for any more information you want on that. But I think most sports, that'd be a great way to find a new sport you want to try, because there's a whole list of things conducted at the Christchurch Sports Centre, which is, I think, owned by the university, but it's not actually part of the university.
Because it's also a part of...
Brompton?
Is it... No, not King's, it's...
something grammar school.
Barton Court.
That's the one. Barton Court, that's the one. Well, I think Brompton. Yes, that's that. But it's also a public gym.
And yeah, imagine that's probably quite similar all over the country at all universities, but that's just specific to Kent, the local impact. So briefly now, just going to tease a few of the topics that are coming up. So I mentioned these last week.
Interesting.
But a few topics we've got coming up on the show. We have solo travelling with Mike Hugh, which I've been saying is coming for weeks now, but we are doing the podcast recording with him in 5 days, and the episode will be up in probably the end of July. And then we've also got, well, we're going to be talking about trains with Stephen. Stephen is a train driver, and we're going to be talking about why he does what he does, travelling in general. I use the trains to get to work most days, and we're going to be talking about the romance of the steam engine and all the behind the scenes. So that is what to expect on the coming episodes. We've also got a few lined up. We're going to be talking film photography with Emma at some point later down the line. We've got so many episodes lined up, and even more off the top of my head that I haven't got noted. We are set for the show all the way through summer. But now we'll be going back to Connor in just a moment to wrap up this week's show about mental health in sport. But there are future topics we are still looking for guests to talk about. And quite fittingly with this topic, we're looking for someone to talk about mindfulness and meditation. So please get in touch if you have a story. Maybe you've been meditating. Maybe you do that Sunday morning yoga. Get in touch. We want to hear your story and get you on the show if you're between 18 and 30 and live in Kent. We also need a guest who's had a new experience. Again, quite fitting for the show. Someone who has tried a new activity. Doesn't have to be sport though. What was it? Did it meet your expectations? We would like to hear from you. And again, all links will be in the YouTube video description, or you can contact the page at the My Generation Podcast. Links in the description. Also, we have linked in the description as well the Samaritans Charity for anyone who's been affected by any of the issues discussed in the video or the podcast, as you are not alone and there is someone to talk to and get you help, the help that you need. We've also, obviously, you can comment on this video. So if you are affected by any of these issues, please do reach out in a similar way that the footballers Danny Rose and Emmanuel Eboue did in the media now. We're encouraging talking. So now we're just going to go back to Connor to wrap up. Connor, what would you say has been the biggest takeaway from today's show for you?
Overall, I think it's nice to hear that people who have this big sports following have come out and said these things about themselves, and I feel like that might have helped them grow as a person as well as help the countless thousands of followers they have. I feel like it's amazing that it's finally getting to the point now where it's more socially acceptable to have things with you mentally. There was never anything wrong with it in the first place, and that's the issue that's always been around. It's people have always thought that there was something wrong, but there's never anything wrong. No matter what you got going on, there's always people around. There's always ways to help. If you want to fix it, there are ways to quote unquote fix it. Fix it is the wrong word. If you want to help yourself, there are ways to help yourself, and there are always other people going through the same thing, and they will always be happy to talk with you and help you out.
We've had a lot of engagement just with this podcast, and it's the reason why I like doing these longer form discussions, because you can really gauge feedback, and most of my feedback's actually come more through people talking to me in real life about things we've discussed on the podcast, whether they're as serious as whether social media is ruining our lives or not, from Lego to Lego collecting.
Yeah, I would have gone absolutely off on one about the social media one. If you'd invited me to that, dude, I would have just destroyed it.
Well, we might have to bring you back to talk about it, because we're always having episodes about social media, and in fact last week, as I mentioned at the start, was an episode just dedicated to the comments I got on the social media episode that we did with Dan.
Oh, you should do a debate episode.
Yeah, we want to get all of the views in that people think and put them on and put them to our guests. So any comments you've got, we'll take them to Connor, especially if you've got them about climbing. We're going to put the link that he's mentioned as well to the Facebook page. That's going to be in the description if you want to consider signing up. Always looking for new members?
Always looking for new members. Also, as well, we are also a group of people who, a fair few of us have also had mental issues in the past. And we've learned that it's great to talk about these things. And, if you want to, and we are, even if you're just a random person, not interested in joining climbing, if you want to just chat, I promise you, no matter what, 24 hours a day, Connor Jenkins, you can find me on the climbing page. I will always be there to talk and help out as best as I can.
Well, thank you so much for that, Connor. That's been a really great discussion. So we look forward to bringing more episodes of the My Generation podcast through summer. Connor, will we be potentially getting you back on the show later down the line?
I would absolutely love to come back on the show, Max.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for coming on today to talk about mental health in sports, trains with Stephen, solo travelling with Mike to come up in the next couple of weeks, film photography, and so much more. I look forward to talking to you on the next episode of the My Generation podcast. It's been Max Barrett. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you then.